Tupac Shakur, it's almost been 30 years that he died, and we're still getting new revelations, new pieces of the puzzle, new parts of the story emerging, and adding some new perspectives on the mystery of his death. In this video, we're gonna use astrology to dig even deeper and reveal and decode and unveil what actually happened. Let's get into it. All right, if you are like me, somebody who still remembers the 90s, I grew up as a teenager in the 90s. I'm a millennial, but I'm an old millennial. The old heads of the millennials born in the beginning of the 80s, early 80s. So I was a teenager when Tupac came on the scene. And if you were around, you would know that the world changed with Tupac coming on the scene. He was legendary. He was different. There was some new energy out there. He spoke for people. He spoke for the disenfranchised. He spoke for those who didn't have a voice. He spoke for you felt like he spoke for anybody who had a grievance about their social situation or their racial situation or whatever the case may be. And a lot of kids, we were learning the lyrics, we were memorizing, even if we didn't understand everything or even if there was a parental advisory. And this was the first time that rap came on the scene like this globally, everywhere, right? Not just in certain smaller circles. And then shortly after, he died. It was a big event. It was all over the news. And as I'm saying, if you were around, you'll remember. If not, then I'm sure you will have seen some of the news coverage and the story. I'm sure you'll know about the story. But let's still have a look at this, how it was covered when it happened.
Rapper Tupac Shakur was shot here in Las Vegas.
The rapper was shot inside of a BMW while stopped at a red light on Koval and Flamingo. And we all know the story. He then died 6 days later. The shooting happened after a Mike Tyson fight against Bruce Sheldon at MGM Grand. And then there was a brawl inside of the lobby right after that fight. Tupac was in the car with Marion Suge Knight, who was grazed by a bullet. No one has ever been arrested for Tupac's murder.
So there was a shooting. They came from the fight that they saw in Las Vegas. And he was in the car with Suge Knight, his business partner, the record label Death Row Records owner. And a Cadillac pulled up, a white Cadillac with a bunch of people in it, and they opened fire. And long story short, that's where he met his demise. So since this happened, there have been so many different theories about what was the backgrounds of this. Was it just these people who were in the car? Was a bunch of gangsters with some gangland affiliations, some Crips and Bloods kind of thing, that there was some turf war going on? Or was it something else? Was there some bigger interest behind this? These were the theories from the beginning. Was it maybe Suge Knight himself who was involved? Was it the East Coast rappers that had this big public beef? So Biggie and Sean Combs, also known as Puff Daddy at that time, now Diddy. Was it them? They had this big beef going on with Tupac and the West Coast. Or was it some other involved fractions? There's been lots of theories around hitman or police or producers who could have been involved in this. Now, what we want to do is we want to look at the astrology, because I can show you that the astrology is, it's actually a forensic tool if you use it right. But more importantly, we want to see what the importance of the story is. Like, how does it fit in the great narrative of cosmic evolution of consciousness and the great battle in this evolution of consciousness that we have between the forces of light and the forces of darkness? Because that's an ongoing battle. That's an ongoing battle from the beginning of time, and it will go on until Judgment Day. And these stories that happen in our lifetimes, the stories that happen with the great, legendary, and iconic characters that stand out as carriers of the story. They play their role and their part in this story. Right, so let's look into the chart of Tupac. I've got Tupac's chart here, and the birth chart, it's basically your spiritual ID or passport, right? It's not issued by a state, but it's issued by the divine forces that assign you an exact place within the spatial-temporal matrix that corresponds with the symbolic forces that you have chosen to incarnate and that you need to incarnate in your current incarnation. And that's in turn based on the decisions that you made before this incarnation. Right? So the birth chart, it tells you why and under what purpose and with which forces you have incarnated. Now, if you look at Tupac's chart, what you see here is somebody who is here to manifest and to bring into the world a divine message. Right? So if you got here, you've got the, let me show you this. You've got we don't have the exact time for his birth. We're working here with just 12 noon. And that's because, I think he was born in jail, or his mother, at least she was pregnant with him in jail, and it must have been a very stressful situation and so on. You can actually see that in the chart too, with the moon opposition Pluto. But anyways, be that as it may, if you don't have the time, you can still work with the chart. Obviously, your insights get far more exact when you know the time, right? Without the time, you will not know in which houses or which zones things are, but you still know what's happening, right? So he's got this Jupiter, Neptune, which is the great access to higher spiritual forces, right? And that's with the asteroid Gottesmann. You can see here Gottesmann, which means man of God in German. And that's basically the man of God with great access to higher messages from the angels. And you can see that here too. The asteroid Angel is here with Saturn and Venus in a conjunction, and the asteroid Polyhymnia. Polyhymnia, it stands for the materialization, the bringing of hymns, basically songs or poetry, which lives far beyond your own lifetime, right? So he's somebody who's a man of God who, with the angels, receives these messages, right? And then manifests them into, you see Saturn with Venus, it means the manifestation, solidification of beauty, right? Or of songs or of aesthetics, right? And that creates these hymns which stay long beyond his own life. And you see here the Mercury with Sun and the asteroid Wang Christi, which is Christ, it stands for Christ. So he's a man of Christ. And you also, there's a couple of others that I didn't put in here right now. Christ, the asteroid itself with Sirius here. There's a couple of other things that I didn't put in here. And then you see what you can see here, very notable for all the pain he went through, with the moon opposite Pluto. That means like this lots of suffering in the upbringing, specifically a transformative deep relation with the mother, which, comes through going through a lot of pain together, right? Knowing the pain that you feel when you're confronted with darkness. That's moon opposite Pluto, right? Feeling to what it feels like to be confronted with the devil and with darkness in life, right? This is where he draws his messages from, right? Or where he draws his words, the experiences from, which then he puts into messages, which then he puts into songs, right? The experiences that are feeding, or in his own words, Let's actually have a quick listen here.
Look up in the sky, wonder why. To everybody gotta die. And wonder why. To everybody gotta die. Up and out in the zone, I was raised to be strong. And mama told me be a thug. Since the day I was born, I came up out the gutter, never changed this slab. Got for real about my papers, cause the game was rap. And the fame was a plot to try to change fair. And what's strange is nobody knew my name for a name. Now the whole world's calling me a killer. And all I ever did was try to reach the kids with the real all the time I was ballin'. Never heard my friends calling. Couldn't stop myself from falling. The mall and the shit's getting easy. Believe me, best to take what you need, but don't be greedy.
So that's Tupac. If we're just looking at Tupac, at his chart, right? And it's pretty clear what type of person, what type of soul incarnated there. So what about the other folks who are involved in the story? Biggie, he was obviously presented as, by the media, he was presented as the rival, you know, the big East Coast rival of Tupac, and the whole East-West thing was played up a lot by the media as, you know, as a way to sell records. And that's why at the time it seemed like this was the rivalry between the two, which led to the demise of one and then the other, of both of them eventually. But let's look at the astrology and see, you know, what's actually behind this. So when you look at Notorious B.I.G.'s chart, you see this guy who's got, you know, this very transformative personality with the Sun Pluto trine here, right? And its sun is also opposite Neptune, so there's a whole of a dreamy aspect to that, and you know, he's kind of he's the creator of dreams as well, a super transformative guy, you know, who has a big impact on everybody, and who is kind of in his dream world in some ways as well, and also super smooth guy, you know, with the Mars Venus conjunction opposite Jupiter. This guy was a player, like a real player, right? So this is really clear in his chart. And now, like, okay, I'm not going to go too much into his actual chart. What I want to look at is how it relates to Tupac, because that's how, you know, we can see what potentially happened between them. You can always see in the synastry between two people. You can see what the potential outcomes of that relationship are. So when you look at this here, Biggie's transformative personality is actually in a pretty well attuned with Tupac's messaging mission, you know, with his kind of divine mission to manifest these hymns, yeah. And Tupac's mission, which is here, right, is really well aligned actually with Biggie's personality. They kind of help each other grow, and I don't really see that many signs of animosity in here, right? In the chart, it's not that much. Like, there's nothing, you know, apart from here, this square of Moon and Mars, which is kind of, okay, they could go on each other's nerves a little bit, but this is nothing major. This is nothing major, right? Definitely nothing that you would say, okay, these are going to be enemies or they're going to kill each other or anything like that. So the astrology does not point towards Biggie as a suspect, you know, in this story. So who else? Well, next folks to look at is the guys that were in the Cadillac, obviously, in the white Cadillac that pulled up, right? Because these were the folks who you know, they had been in a fight with Tupac just before, right? Orlando Anderson, that's the guy who he had the fight with. And if you look at his chart, let me just push just a little bit to the side so you can see. You can see? Yeah, you can see like this. Okay. So if you look at his chart, this guy is a very strange synastry. He's got the descending node with Mercury both ways. This is actually a sign of two people having a strong past life connection, and potentially they were siblings even. You know, Mercury both ways on Ketu, or cousins or something like that, but very close, immediate kind of context. They were related potentially in a past life, and there was some you know, unresolved karma from that situation, and some rivalry, a lot of rivalry, because then the sun here, Orlando Anderson's son, and Tupac's mission and Mars here is opposed, right? Mars on Rahu, or Mars on the North Node. This is opposed like this. So Mars opposition Sun shows, an important potential enemy relationship, right? Rivalry, a big rivalry. So very strange, to see this with the Mercury, that they seem to have some kind of ties there that are a little bit deeper and a little bit karmic that people don't necessarily know about. But apart from that, there's not much else you can see. There's nothing much happening with regards to the mission, that Tupac is on, the message that he's bringing. Actually, you got here Orlando supporting that, emotionally supporting that message and the mission. There's nothing here from a bigger picture for why, it would lead to necessarily the demise of Tupac. So Orlando, or even all the guys in the car, they were probably not the main decision makers in this. They were just the tools that were used, and they had their own karma in this situation, but they were the tools that were used to execute, right? They were like the goons, the hired guns. And similar with Keffe D. So Keffe D was this big gangster, and he has this Mars, Pluto, Uranus conjunction in Virgo, which is, this guy made very fast moves to execute on things, right? And especially when it was about making money, he was always super fast to execute and make moves that were kind of 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And it stands in attention here to Tupac's Saturn, and Tupac's, this whole conjunction, this whole mission that I talked about, which Tupac is on. So he would kind of interfere. His fast money-making, decision-making would come and interfere with this, right? So definitely, yeah, okay, there's some enmity here, right? Definitely you could see that these guys could clash with each other. But even here, it's not that much yet. It's not yet, I'm not seeing a chart which is kind of packed to necessarily be, okay, these guys, this is going to not end well between them, right? So Suge Knight is the other person we got to look at. Obviously, he was in the car with Tupac, and he is the owner of Death Row Records. He is actually, he made bank based on Tupac dying and then becoming this global legend, even more so after his death, right? He made a lot of money with Death Row Records. So when you look at him, and this guy actually, there's something in his aura already. If you look at the pictures, he was also arrested for all kinds of felonies afterward. But if you look at his pictures, there's something about his energy that tells you that this is not necessarily a good dude, right? That there's some dark energy going on there. You can see this in pictures when you look at people. In the energy and the aura of people, you can tell, right? And this guy, yeah, there's some sinister dark energy going on there all the time with him. He's got he looks like somebody who's made a pact with certain forces, with certain dark forces, right? And if we look at the chart, so let's look at his chart to see. I actually got a chart here on Suge Knight, which shows you some asteroids as well. Okay, the asteroids, if you add them, you get much more detail, right? And this guy's chart, the chart is just super telling, extremely telling. So you got Pluto, Uranus with Mars here, okay? And this is in opposition to Saturn, okay? So this is this guy is going to be part of a powerful transformation of social forces or of social structures, right? And a powerful and dark transformation of social structures, right? Which is going to be oppressive, potentially. And there is the Mars here with Mason Coal. You see, Mason Coal is the asteroid that stands for the Illuminati or the Freemasons. And there's the asteroid Asmodeus. Asmodeus stands for, is a demon actually, is a king of demons, is a powerful demon. So you have basically the sign here of this person is part of a social transformation which involves the Illuminati and demonic forces, right? And this person is completely part of this. And because his moon is here too, his moon is bound up in this too, in this square, and his moon is with Baal, the asteroid Baal. Baal is another name for Satan. It's another demon. So as if that's not enough, this goes on and on with this guy. So you got moon with Baal, and here, you know, Mason cult, Freemason, you know, Illuminati, and Asmodeus, the demon. And then you got Jupiter with Lucifer. So here you can see that Jupiter with Lucifer, it means faith in Lucifer, belief in Lucifer, this guy has, right? And then, again, as if that's not enough, then the sun is with Typhon. Typhon is in the Greek mythology, the devourer of gods, right, is another demon. And this is in opposition to Ixion. So Ixion is an asteroid which stands for murder, right? And this is in opposition with his sun, right? So this guy's chart is just completely packed with the proof that not just this incarnation, but multiple incarnations, this guy has been on the team of the darkness. He's been playing on the side of the darkness. And then if you look at the synastry, so synastry, that's when we put together the charts of two people and their stand in relation to each other. It tells us about the potentials of that relation. So when you look at the synastry of these two guys, Tupac and Suge Knight, I'm going to just pop that up here. You see clearly that this story, how it plays out with Suge Knight's participation in transforming society, transforming the music industry with the Illuminati, right? This is this constellation here. It stands in attention to Tupac's Mercury. You see, Tupac's Mercury, which is his message. So what Tupac speaks, or what he spoke about, or the message that he brought, it stood in a clear tension to this transformation that Suge Knight wanted to bring about, or that he was basically enlisted in to bring about, right? So this is a pretty clear sign of a tension that exists here, even though here with the Jupiter on Venus and on Saturn, you know, clearly Suge Knight made a lot of money off this relationship, but this tension is nonetheless very clear between what Tupac says and this mission that Suge Knight was enlisted on. Another person who keeps getting mentioned a lot in the story is Sean Combs, also known as Diddy. He used to be Puff Daddy back then. Not really sure why he kept changing his name. He's got some big issues right now with a lawsuit that was just filed against him. It's some kind of, you know, it's a big deal. It's a Jeffrey Epstein kind of moment for the music industry. I'm probably going to do another video just on this. If you want to see that, put it in the comments below. Right now, I'm only talking about him in relation to Tupac. And obviously, he was, you know, one of the main beneficiaries of what then happened between Tupac and B.I.G. after both were off the scene, after both were gone. He kind of took over and he brought his brand of his type of super commercialized and you know, the kind of bling bling rap onto the scene, which then took over the entire industry. So let's look at his chart as well. If you look at his chart, I have his chart here with the asteroids as well that you can see. And it's kind of similar story to Suge Knight. There's a lot of positions here which are not very savory. So you're seeing here in his chart Pluto with Baal and Acristo, which is another asteroid that stands for Antichrist. That's on Pluto and Baal. So super force, you know, super strong kind of connection to the dark forces in his chart as well. And then you have Saturn with Lucifer, the commands of Lucifer, basically, that is in opposition to Ixion and Mercury. Ixion, remember, is about murder, and Mercury is, you know, siblings, or those who are close. It stands for those who are close to you. So this, you know, doesn't really bode well for, you know, just when you look at his chart, it looks like there is a lot of darkness going on as well. Obviously, he also has the Venus with Jupiter, which is the big benefic and the smaller benefic, and Venus in Libra, super strong. So this guy is going to be very much favored by fortune when it comes to money and luxury and amassing wealth, which he's very favored for. But now that's just him. And as I said, I'm going to do another video on his personal issues and all the other things that are coming out now with the lawsuit that's coming up. But let's look at the synastry with Tupac as well. And when we bring up the synastry, so we're seeing Tupac and Sean Combs here, you can't actually see that much of attention here. So his money-making instincts, they actually are, you know, harmonious with Tupac's character and personality. And yes, there is a square here between Sun and Mars, which brings a little bit of aggression, but you can't see that much of a notable conflict or notable kind of opposition to each other's realization of their plans in life or of their purpose in life. So you can see that, you know, Diddy, just like Suge Knight, is part of this movement in the music industry, which brought the music industry under control of certain dark forces. But there isn't necessarily between Diddy and Tupac that synastry in place, which would make you think that he was involved in his demise, in Tupac's demise. Now, that being said, there's actually a dark horse that I'm going to present to you, somebody whose involvement might have been more marked or more notable, at least from a spiritual perspective, whose karma is much more problematic with Tupac. And this person, his name is Jimmy Iovine. So Jimmy Iovine, he's actually one of the most powerful people in the music industry, and he was the founder of Interscope Records, which was, next to Death Row Records, the other big organization that benefited. He probably benefited even far more from Tupac's death because he was the distributor. Interscope Records was the distributor of the music and also of the music rights in which remained with them after Tupac's death. That extended to his legacy as well. So if you look at this guy, Jimmy Iovine, I've got his chart here too. You see another, you know, again, you see these themes. These are really kind of repetitive themes that you have in the music industry. And it's very telling for what, you know, who's ruling the music industry. And you got the Sun opposite Asmodeus and Baal, right? So the Lord of Demons, both Lord of Demons are directly, you know, on the Sun. And you've got here the Ixion, which stands for murder, and that's with Neptune. What's Neptune? Neptune is about deception, right? Deception as well, so in the lower form. And Neptune opposite Mars is exactly the mark of deception and deceptive plans, you know, hidden plans, hidden deceptive plans, you know, and that's together with Ixion, which stands for murder. And then you have Jupiter square Pluto, which stands for expansion of power at all costs. And all of this is in this guy's chart. So now if you look at this guy's chart and how it relates to Tupac, let's have a look at that too. So if you bring up the chart and see how the synastry looks like, then you will see that this guy's chart, so his expansion of power, his kind of will for expansion of power at all costs, it stands in attention to Tupac's Mars. So Mars is, Tupac's decisions and actions that he takes are opposing and challenging this guy's power, right? And you can see also here a Pluto opposition to Sun, which is the marker of an enemy, right? So seeing the other person as an enemy, right? So even when you look at the synastry, you have quite strong marks here of opposition, of challenging, of seeing the other person as an enemy, and then taking that together with Jimmy Iovine's actual personal chart that I just showed you, it allows you to make some conclusions, maybe in a direction which not a lot of people have been thinking, but which actually, when you look at the money, follow the money, you say there is a lot to be said about this, or a lot to to think more into this direction. For one thing is for sure, though, it wouldn't be without precedent that great artists are being taken advantage of by the producers who are acting like organized crime, basically. And traditionally it's been the Jewish mafia that's been hard on this, or that's been dominating a lot of the music industry, together with the mob, the Italian mob, who've been backing them often. And there's some interesting, there's a scene in The Sopranos which shows this actually. I'm gonna just show you this.
When you and Little Jimmy were writing partners on all his hits, did you write the music and him the lyrics, or was it the other way around?
We had our own process.
So that ooh, wackadoodly doo, I'm so blue, that spring from your experience or the Little Brothers?
One could write a song about a horse, but in order for it to be a hit with your target audience, you'd have to have a mounted cop on him, be ripped up the ass with a MAC-10, no?
So you bought horses with your royalties, and Little Jimmy's royalties, whatever became of those?
We bought horse. Music business back then, we were breaking all the rules, making them, breaking them as we went along.
You mean raping and pillaging?
Things haven't changed much, huh?
It's just a funny scene, which I'm going to play more for you, but you get the point. The whole music industry is dominated by people who are in positions of power and who are using those positions of power to maximize their profits, and also to use those channels for certain type of manipulation and putting messages, subliminal messages, and also very blatant and open messages into the collective consciousness, especially of kids and of those who are more susceptible and vulnerable for whatever the industry tells them, right? This is one of the big problems. This is one of the fields where the devil in today's world is acting in a position of power and using the media and the music industry to do his deeds. Now, before I end this video, I want to end this video with the words of Keffe Shakur, Tupac's mother, as I think she captured best how we should appreciate the fact that there is rays of light, and there's always going to be rays of light again, and there's always going to, the light always going to return. There's three things that are always going to come out no matter what you do: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And just like that, the light in every industry is going to take shape and have a voice again, and it's happening already everywhere if you just look, and if you just look for the right people. So let's hear Keffe Shakur.
I miss that. I miss interacting with that human being, that perfect being, that excited, lovable, really magnificent spirit, I miss him. I miss him. I can't pick one thing. I miss him. I miss my son every day a little bit more, but I thank God every day for every second that he was here. And I feel I don't want to ask for too much, to ask for more than I was supposed to have. I thank God for every day of those 25 years.
All right. So with those beautiful words, I'm going to leave this here. And I want to hear from you. What do you want to know more about next? Because we can use this tool to reveal and decode everything that's happening in culture and in history and around us in the world, and all the stories that they don't want you to know the truth about. The truth is written in the stars, and we can read it and uncode it and decode it. So let's do this. Subscribe, like, share this with people who need to see this, and tell me in the comments what you want to see next. Bless.